I tried to make rye bread for the first time, and I don't know what I expected, but here is how it went. It started with 2 tablespoons of dark syrup. This is sweet, has a lot of sugar, but also a deep flavor. I did not really find any traces of its flavor in the end product, but some recipes included this, so I added it in as well. Then I'm going to add in 400 grams of warm water. The yeast packet said 42 degrees Celsius, but the temperature will drop a little bit when pouring and mixing, so I aimed a little bit higher than that. Next in goes 10 grams of dry yeast. You can wait a little bit to see if the yeast is alive, but I'm feeling lucky and just continue right away. I mix the yeast in and add in 8 grams of salt and just give it a quick stir around. Then I'm going to add 400 grams of rye flour. I usually do this the other way around, first mixing the dry stuff and then the liquids, but I wanted the syrup to dissolve to the water first. And the last ingredient, which is 100 grams of just regular bread flour. This is to make the bread a little bit smoother and to rise better. Having 20% of the flour to be just regular bread flour instead of rye flour helps the dough to rise a little bit better and make the texture a little bit smoother. I'm going to mix these until there is no dry flour left. I don't think kneading this won't make any significant difference. Now it's time to leave this for at least 30 minutes, but I'm sure it will be fine even if you left for work for 10 hours, as long as you cover it properly. It might even have positive impact on the taste if you leave it for longer. After maybe 1 hour later, it's time to continue with the project. I add a lot of rye flour to the table and on top of the dough and take the dough out of the bowl. You could probably use just bread flour in this as well, but since this is going to be more rye bread, I decided to go with that. I'm going to press and roll this into this big flat pizza looking thing, as long as you get it somewhat even in thickness. I aimed for around 0.5 centimeters in thickness, but looking it now, I guess something closer to 1 centimeter would be better. They would become more airy and not dry too much. When it's nice and flat, it's time to cut these to whatever shape you prefer. You can use knife, but a pizza cutter works really well for this. And now I'm going to put them on a baking sheet to rise for maybe 30 minutes before going in the oven. The sizes of these do not increase that much, so you can put them really close to each other, closer than I did. I also made some holes in these with the fork. I guess that's also optional and the results can be even better without the holes, but more about that later in this video when the batch number 3 comes out of the oven. I'm going to cover this with a kitchen towel, which is also optional and can make a difference in the end product I found. I'm going to repeat the same for another baking sheet and set the oven to preheat into 225 degrees Celsius or around 440 degrees Fahrenheit. And as a bonus, I got this amazing idea to bake one of these in a microwave at full power. I kept this in for around 1 minute at first. I checked it and it was quite wet, so I flipped it and gave it another 30 seconds or so. When it came out, it was hard as a rock and it smelled like burnt popcorn. It took the strength of 1,000 men to break this, and it is one of the driest things I have ever eaten. I guess the taste was not that bad with butter, so if you are in a rush, why not? But I would still recommend using just a regular oven for this. But now it's time for the first real batch to go in the oven after around 30 minutes of rising. The first batch was in the oven for around 16 minutes. The recipes I took inspiration from even said to go closer to 20 minutes, but even with the 16, these were super hard and dry. The second batch came out much better. I kept these in for 10 minutes and they are a lot softer and more like what I aimed for. The third batch was mostly leftover scraps, but it was the best one. The difference to the last batch is that these did not have holes in them and they had 30 minutes more to rise compared to the first batch. So based on these 3 batches and 1 microwave experiment, here are some tips for the best outcome. Or the best outcome based on this short experiment that I had. The first tip is to make the dough thicker. Aim for maybe 1 centimeter instead of 0.5 as I did, that will probably make them better. The second tip is to not poke holes to the bread, or at least try to have some without. Not having holes can trap some steam in, making them rise more and make it easier to cut them open if that's what you prefer. The third tip is, at least for myself, the next time I try to make these, I will leave at least one sheet uncovered for the final rise. I guess if the top layer dries a little bit, it might also help the bread to hold the air in better. And the final tip is to rise them for longer. I got the best results on the third batch, which got 60 minutes to rise instead of the 30 minutes the first batch had. But for the first time, this was not a complete disaster and it was quite fun to try something different. If you try to make these, let me know in the comments how it went and whether you have some additional tips for me and other people who want to experiment with these. Thanks for watching and remember to like and subscribe for better results.